Hello everyone, welcome to my update US gossip channel. Sister wives at last, Kody Brown apologizes to Janelle, his ex-wife. Is 2025 the year to fix fences? Sister wives Kody Brown definitely hopes so. He hopes it's not too late to apologize to his ex-wives after years of hostility. In what he called a three-part apology tour, he is beginning by apologizing to his second wife, Janelle Brown. Kody Brown told his ex-wife Janelle Brown that he was a B****starred. Over the years, Kody has treated Janelle quite poorly. She believes he has spent the majority of his time undermining himself, and his apologies doesn't hide his negative actions. He acknowledges that he has spent a lot of time being upset and acting out, and now it seems like he is seeking tranquility. The Brown patriarch remarked, "I think the entire family has needed an olive branch." Since Janelle was the one Kody felt the safest with to start offering that olive branch, he took a plane to North Carolina to meet with her. Kody wanted to apologize for being so angry and bitter over the family breakup, which is why he started the peace process. That animosity boiled over and set him at odds with his 3 prior wives and most of their children. He believes that the white flag should be raised. He told Janelle, "I've been A***starred about this whole breakup for years. I believe that saying I didn't love you was the cruelest thing I ever did. That was untrue. From the standpoint of suffering, that was untrue." They both acknowledged that managing a plural marriage was challenging, and Janelle stated she understood he didn't mean it. The ugly past has taught her valuable lessons. However, even if she acknowledges that she still has feelings for Kody and vice versa, this does not imply that they will become friends. Janelle declared, "He's not in my life. And I will not be a part of his life. If nothing else, there won't be any conflict when they have to interact." As for Kody, he said that rather than wanting to burn everything to the ground as he did when he was upset, he is willing to acknowledge that he was a part of something amazing. Kody Brown's long-awaited apology to Janelle Brown in 2025 was something no fan of sister wives expected to see after years of hostility, simmering resentment, and the emotional wreckage left behind by the collapse of the Brown family's plural marriage. But as Kody stepped off that plane in North Carolina, far from the chaos of Flagstaff and the ghosts of Coyote Pass, it became clear that he had finally reached the point in his life where he could no longer keep carrying the bitterness that had poisoned nearly every one of his relationships. For once, he wasn't trying to deflect blame, defend himself, or posture as the misunderstood patriarch. This time, with Janelle sitting across from him, he allowed the vulnerability he had always been so terrified to show rise to the surface as he admitted what so many already knew, that he had been cruel, vindictive, and consumed by anger, that he had handled the breakup of the family in the worst way possible, that the person he became in those explosive final years of the plural marriage was not someone he wanted to be anymore, and that Janelle, the woman he once claimed he couldn't love, was the safest place to begin the painful but necessary process of reconciliation. He told her plainly and without theatrics that he had been, in his own words, a B****starred for nearly 4 years, lashing out whenever he felt threatened, resentful, or disappointed, all while refusing to admit how deeply the unraveling of the family had wounded him. And Janelle listened quietly, her expression soft but guarded, because while she had long ago accepted that she couldn't change Kody, she had never fully accepted the cruelty he had shown her, especially in those tense pandemic years when he isolated himself from the entire family except Robin and weaponized his anger against the wives who no longer fit into the narrative he wanted to salvage. Now, sitting together for the first time in what felt like ages, they both acknowledged that their marriage had been burdened by years of miscommunication, uneven emotional labor, and Kody's growing favoritism, but they also recognized the truth in what had kept them connected through the early years of their lives together, that they had once respected one another deeply, trusted each other implicitly, and built a home filled with stability even when the rest of the family felt chaotic. Kody confessed the very words that had haunted many sister wives viewers, the moment he told her he didn't love her. The statement that cut deeper than any argument and left a lasting scar on a woman who had given decades of her life to their marriage, and this time, he didn't try to soften it, reframe it, or blame the heat of the moment. He admitted plainly that it had been a lie born out of rage, hurt pride, and the loss of control he felt as the family fractured around him, a moment where he weaponized pain because he didn't know what else to do. But Janelle surprised him, as she often had over the years, by telling him she had always known he didn't truly mean it, that she recognized the desperation behind the words. Even when they had stung her more than she ever let on, because she is a woman who doesn't show her heartbreak easily, who processes the hardest parts of her life privately and moves forward with a quiet dignity that Kody had never fully appreciated when they were married. Still, despite acknowledging that they cared deeply for one another in their own ways, both of them knew their relationship could not be resurrected, could not be reshaped into friendship or closeness, because too much had happened and too many wounds had been left untended for too long. So Janelle told him calmly that while she wished him well and appreciated the apology, she did not see a future where she and Kody would remain in each other's lives beyond the practical moments required by family ties, admitting, "He's not in my life, and I'm not going to be in his," a statement not made out of spite but out of acceptance, because she had finally reached a place of emotional independence that she had never truly enjoyed while married to him. Kody, perhaps for the first time in years, didn't argue, didn't try to persuade her otherwise, didn't demand that she see things from his perspective, but instead took in her words with a quiet resignation, almost relief, as though he understood that her boundaries were healthy and that any genuine reconciliation would require him to honor them, not attempt to bulldoze them the way he often had in the past. And as they continued talking, he admitted that in the immediate aftermath of the plural family's collapse, he had wanted to erase everything, to burn the whole history of their lives together to the ground out of grief and anger, but after years of reflection, years spent mostly alone, cut off from the children who once looked at him as a hero, he realized that despite the heartbreak and despite the chaos, they had built something extraordinary, something full of love and resilience even if it didn't survive the shifting dynamics of adulthood and personal growth. He told her that he had missed the version of himself that existed when they were younger, a man he barely recognized anymore, and that his hope in coming to North Carolina was to at least reclaim a small piece of the humanity he had lost along the way. And although Janelle didn't offer him absolution, she did offer him honesty, telling him that while the apology mattered, it didn't change the reality of their paths diverging, that she was finally building a life she enjoyed, a life filled with independence, her children, and her new sense of purpose, while he was still trying to figure out who he was now that the family he once controlled no longer revolved around him. The conversation, which could have easily turned bitter or accusatory in the past, was instead surprisingly calm, filled with an emotional maturity that had eluded them during the worst years of the family breakdown. And though both knew they could never go back, there was a shared understanding that maybe they didn't need to, maybe closure was enough. Maybe peace didn't require friendship or frequent contact or even emotional closeness, maybe it simply required acknowledging what had happened, taking accountability, and moving forward without the weight of the past dragging them backward. And as the evening ended and Kody prepared to leave, he seemed lighter than he had in years, no longer fueled by the rage that once defined him but instead humbled by the realization that healing begins not with the expectation of forgiveness, but with the courage to confront the damage you've caused. And while Janelle didn't promise anything beyond civility, her willingness to hear him out, paired with her firm boundaries, allowed them to part without animosity for the first time in a very long time, leaving Kody with the difficult but necessary truth that mending fences would take time, patience, and sincerity, and leaving Janelle with the quiet satisfaction of knowing she no longer needed his validation to be at peace with her life, that she had already built a future that did not require him, and that the apology she received was not for the purpose of rekindling anything, but simply the long-overdue acknowledgement of her worth. In the end, Kody's first stop on his three-part apology tour did not fix years of fractured relationships, but it did something perhaps more important. It allowed both of them to finally close the chapter on their marriage without the bitterness that had defined its final pages, marking the first time in years that they walked away not as adversaries, but as two people who once shared a life, who survived its collapse, and who could now, at last, move forward untethered by the resentment that once consumed them both. As Kody walked away from that meeting, he felt the weight of years lift just enough for him to breathe again, but what he didn't realize was that his apology had also given Janelle something she hadn't expected, validation that the suffering she endured during the final years of their marriage had not been imagined, exaggerated, or dismissed. It had been real, it had been painful, and now, at last, It had been acknowledged by the very man who caused it. Janelle, meanwhile, returned to her routines in North Carolina with a renewed sense of emotional clarity, realizing she didn't need closure from Kody to move forward, but receiving it still offered a small, unexpected sense of relief. She wasn't hoping for a friendship, and she wasn't hoping for renewed closeness. She was simply grateful that their future interactions, birthdays, graduations, holidays, and moments involving their children, might no longer carry the tension that once made every shared space feel heavy. As for Kody, he left knowing that the apology was only the beginning of a much longer journey, one that would require him to face Christine, Mary, and eventually the many children whose trust he had eroded. But for the first time in years, he felt prepared to try, not because he wanted to rebuild the old family dynamic, but because he finally understood that peace came not from control, but from accountability.